given the record of some in recent years. But I'm optimistic you'll be able to achieve it. I'd like to dig in on these pillars to get your perspective as we take your budget request into consideration and craft a final product. The President's skinny budget request rightly expresses
with renewed vigor. I'd like to highlight just a few things the FBI has undertaken in the few short months that I've been at the helm. We have apprehended 3 of the FBI's most top 10 wanted fugitives in the world, 3 in less than 3 months. We've joined our partners at DHS and conducted targeted operations to round up fugitives around the country. For instance, in Massachusetts alone, we apprehended 370 violent fugitives. We seized, along with our partners at DHS and the Department of Defense in one operation down off the coast of Florida, 44,000 pounds of illicit narcotics. That's $500 million of pure narcotics that would have hit the streets, are now off the streets permanently. And as part of Operation Allied Corridor, we've targeted approximately 3,000 illegal aliens with ties to criminal organizations who are eligible for deportation or removal. Children. Today, as we talked about with the Attorney General in Operation Restore Justice, prioritizing crimes against children is a priority of mine and will continue to be of the FBI. Just this morning, we announced that we executed over 450 search warrants and have rounded up in the last month alone over 400 individuals who choose to enact acts of violence against our children. 205 in the last week alone, to include individuals in positions of trust, such as teachers and law enforcement officers. They are committing some of the most heinous crimes against the most innocent of our society, and we will not tolerate it. It will remain a priority for us. As we double down on criminal threats, we're never going to stop pursuing the mission of defending the homeland. Foreign spies are trying to steal our technology, are trying to steal our agricultural products and seeds. Cyber actors are looking to infiltrate our networks on a daily basis from all parts of the world, and foreign and domestic terrorists continue their plotting, both here and overseas. It's hard not to overstate the operational tempo that the FBI must act and will continue to act since I've been at the helm in these last 3 months. The mission is a no-fail mission because if we fail, then American lives will be endangered or lost. Every operation we run comes with one end state in mind: to disrupt or stop criminal activity or threats to the homeland. It's not I that do the work of the FBI. It's the agents, the intel analysts, the SOS, and the support staff throughout our field offices that take it to the streets every single day. It's our linguists who translate and transcribe from dialects that most people on earth don't even know about in offices on a 24/7 basis so that our search warrants can be signed out, so that our arrest warrants can be signed and approved by judges. It's the everyday women of the FBI across the country, many of them I've gotten to meet in my short time, and prior to that, in my time as a terrorism prosecutor, worked hand in glove with them, both here in America and overseas. Our Joint Terrorism Task Force is a heartbeat of what defends this country from domestic and international threats of terrorism. Every one of our 55 field offices has a Joint Terrorism Task Force situated in almost every single state in this country, covering every single state in this country. We've stopped many plots, including against targeting energy facilities in Baltimore, and of course, the tragic New Orleans day plot, terrorist attack. One of our initiatives, of course, is to continue to fight against illicit fentanyl trafficking and narcotics trafficking into the country. Every 7 minutes in this country, as of last year, an individual, an American citizen, is killed from a drug overdose. To that end, we have enacted, along with our partners across the interagency in the Southwest Border Intelligence Center, the Counter Cartel Coordination Center, as what we call at the FBI, the C4. We have flexed assets over to that area and are using it as a regional hub to countermand the narcotics coming across the southern border. It's important efforts like these that not just stop the narcotics traffickers and narco-terrorists from entering our country, but from pouring drugs in. We must work with the interagency to accomplish this goal. We will work with the interagency to accomplish this goal. It's not an FBI mission alone. We will partner with anyone and everyone willing to achieve this mission set. In one of my first actions as director, I gave my agents and intel analysts an opportunity to go out and serve in the field. And many of those individuals took that opportunity and have requested to be redeployed into the field, into every one of your states across this country. We are moving more than 1,000 positions outside of the Washington, D.C. area. And that's not the Washington field office or Hoover alone. That's what we call the NCR, the National Capital Region. Approximately 11,000-ish FBI employees of the 37,000 that are currently employed work inside the NCR. We need some of those field operatives out in the field. We need some of those intelligence analysts out in the field. We need their expertise in your states, in your counties, in your towns, because the threat to this country in 2025 is everywhere. And we cannot quarterback that mission from Washington, D.C. alone. We will remain here in Washington with the cadre we need to support the field offices, absolutely. But we need to bolden our efforts in the field. We are also, under my leadership, looking to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. We have found duplicative line item contracts already within the FBI, and we don't want to waste taxpayer dollars at the Bureau. We don't want to pay twice for something when we have been only needed to pay once. Modernizing and prioritizing the FBI is a critical component of what we need to do. Our capabilities and our infrastructure at the FBI are outdated. They have been the opposite of streamlined. An agent in our field office in El Paso does not have the same toolkit as an agent in our field offices covering the Dakotas as our agent in New York City. That's unacceptable to me. We will fix that. But building this new infrastructure is going to take not just a public effort, it's going to take a public-private partnership engagement, which we have already executed on. The members of this committee are important, critical partners to the fight against crime in this country and to defending our homeland. And you know better than anyone that our no-fail mission continues and can't continue without your investment and your support. I rely on your expertise. I rely on our conversations that I have with you here and offline to tell me where the problem sets are in this country, because I don't know where they all are. And then we can deploy assets to attack the growing problem sets. Our enemies are getting more and more creative by the day. And we need to keep up not just with the intelligence, but with you, who represent the men and women in the United States across this country. You have the ground level knowledge that we need to help fight this message. Without the funds to get ahead of our adversaries, I agree, we risk making trade-offs that will jeopardize the safety of Americans. So it's my commitment to you to work with you during this appropriations process to address budgetary needs, shortfalls, and also think innovatively to make sure we fund the FBI for a future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Director. We will proceed under the 5-minute rule. And to begin with, I recognize myself. Let me say this, congratulations on the fentanyl raid in the last few hours. I think one of the largest, if not the largest, seizure of fentanyl drugs. What can you say about that operation?
We seized, Mr. Chairman, I believe what you're referring to is a 6-kilogram seizure of fentanyl in Kentucky that constitutes an amount of fentanyl that can kill 500,000 Americans. And that's just one of the seizures that we have conducted throughout this country, because the fentanyl crisis in the United States of America has not been countermanded. This time last year alone, 620 kilograms of fentanyl had been seized. In these last 3 months, 840 kilograms of fentanyl have been seized across the country by the FBI alone. Fentanyl and carfentanil, a drug that is 100 times more potent than fentanyl itself, is exploding across the scene because we are letting our enemies and adversaries in mainland China produce chemicals and ship them here freely. And we need to attack that head on. And it's operations like that, Mr. Chairman, that will allow us to save the lives of our kids.
Well, we certainly wish you well in that regard. This is your first time testifying before this subcommittee, and you've briefly shared a few priorities in your statement. Let me allow you more time regarding your initial priorities. particularly any strategic goals or areas where additional congressional involvement might be necessary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, and I hope to work with all members of the committee to achieve the following. I'll ask you for money that I need and that the Bureau needs, and I won't ask you for a dime more. In order to achieve the mission of the FBI, if we continue on the current trajectory outlined, we will have to not only eliminate 1,100 vacancies currently at the FBI, I will have to fire 1,300 more. In order to fight crime at a level that is consistent with 2025, the budgetary number I've asked for in my paperwork is, I think, reasonable. And also, just to put it in perspective, it's multiples of billions of dollars less than what the TSA has to operate annually. I believe we can continue on the plan to safeguard our communities and redeploy assets to the FBI. For example, in Kentucky alone, if we are allowed to continue on this trajectory, we will plus up with approximately 30 agents and intel analysts with this redeployment effort that is already underway. That will allow more agents to be in the field and conduct more seizures of fentanyl, prevent more acts of violent crime, and stop more murders and stop more gangbangers. I firmly believe putting folks in the field is one of the biggest ways we can secure the safety of our communities. Places like Louisville have dedicated over 2,000 hours alone to assisting DHS, conducting over 100 arrests. And so it's operations like that that I can go on that we can do if we have the manpower to do it, and I believe we'll get there.
In your plan to move positions from Washington, D.C. to the field offices, totally in the country, how many changes will you see? Locations?
Every single state gets a plus up, Mr. Chairman. We have 55 field offices, a little over 300 resident agencies covering down in some large swaths of geography, like the Dakotas and Montana and Idaho region, which don't themselves have what we call a special agent in charge. But covering down on this plus up allows us not to just send agents and intel analysts to our field offices, but our resident agencies as well, which cover down on this geography to include tribal lands. I just met with the leaders of every tribal community in the country here in Washington, D.C. 2 days ago, and I told them the crimes that are happening to individuals like Emily Pike, a 14-year-old who was dismembered on a reservation in Arizona, and her mother asked me to find her arms because they only found a piece of her body. A crime like that occurs everywhere in this country, tragically, and they will not receive any less attention from this FBI because it occurred on tribal lands. But allowing a plus up will also allow us to engage the tribal communities and the leaders that I asked for their help in letting us on and work with them because they face the same violent crime everyday Americans do.
How will you judge the impact that this effort will make?
I think we've already seen it, Mr. Chairman, in just the sheer amount of fentanyl alone, when you look at this time last year versus this time this year. When you look at the number of arrests of violent criminals this time last year versus this year. And that's just with a short-term surge to the field that we've done in these last couple of months. The long-term push to the field will take much longer.
Well, thank you for willing to serve. And we wish you well and will be supportive of your efforts. We want to see the FBI back to its former glory. And we think you're the man that can make that happen. So our best wishes to you.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Ming?
Director Patel, since 2022, the executive branch has been legally required to operate and maintain a publicly available system to which apportionments are posted. As you know, apportionments are legally required by the Anti-Deficiency Act. They are formal federal budgetary accounting documents that are legally binding on federal agency, and OMB uses them to tell agencies how and when they can spend legally appropriated funds. Beginning in March, this OMB stopped making these documents publicly accessible. You stated in your confirmation hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee that you want to work to get public trust in the FBI back. It would seem to me that transparency and public reporting about where and how the Bureau is spending money would help in earning back public trust. As the leader of our nation's principal federal law enforcement agency, will you commit to making the FBI's account-specific apportionments publicly available?
Absolutely, so long as I have the appropriate request.
The law requires that all the information be posted publicly. Are you committing to do that?
If that's what the law requires, yes. I'm not the appropriations expert, but if that's what the law requires, that's what we'll do.
Do you have a timeline of when that would be possible, and why, since March, has it been taken down?
No, ma'am, but I will get you one.
Okay, so thank you for committing to publicly post what is required by law, the apportionment for the FBI. I wanted to ask about